We all hear things in the night. A floorboard settling, the wind brushing against a window. Things we explain away, because the truth would be too heavy to believe. This story isn't about monsters or demons. It's about silence. About the moment you realize something is watching you and waiting for when you finally fall asleep. So tonight, if you hear a sound coming from above your ceiling, don't open your eyes. Just listen. Because this is the story of the attic door that opened when I slept. It's strange how silence in an old house feels different. It's not the peaceful kind of quiet. It's layered. You can hear the ticking of the walls, the groan of wood that's been standing longer than you've been alive, and sometimes sounds that don't belong to any living thing. I moved back into my family home 2 years ago, after my father passed away. The house sits near the edge of a small rural town in northern Pennsylvania, surrounded by trees that have been there longer than the road that leads to them. It was built sometime in the late 1800s, 2 stories, with a narrow attic that always gave me chills as a kid. When I was little, that attic was off limits. My father used it for storage, old furniture, boxes of books, photographs, and things from before I was born. The wooden pull-down door in the hallway ceiling was painted white, with a small metal ring you could grab to pull it down. As a kid, I used to stare at that ring before bed, wondering what it would feel like to pull it. But I never did. Not once. When I moved back, the house was mostly the same, except quieter. I lived alone now. My father's tools still hung neatly in the shed. The porch still had the same rocking chair that creaked whenever the wind brushed by. It felt familiar, but hollow. Still, it was home, and I told myself I'd get used to it. The first few nights were normal. I spent most of my time cleaning, unpacking, and trying to settle in. The plumbing rattled, the floorboards groaned, and sometimes the wind would whistle through the chimney like someone sighing upstairs. I told myself it was just the age of the house. That's what old homes do. They talk. It wasn't until the third week that I noticed something small. Something I brushed off at first. Every morning when I woke up, the attic door's rope ring would be slightly turned. Not hanging straight down like before, but twisted, almost as if someone had brushed it. I told myself it must be air pressure, maybe a draft from a vent or an open window. Still, it caught my eye every morning. One night, while watching TV in the living room, I heard a faint creak from the ceiling above me. It was slow, then stopped. I muted the TV, listened, and heard nothing else. I told myself it was probably the wood expanding with the cold. But as the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that the sound came from the attic. I didn't go up there, though. There was no reason to. The ladder was stiff and heavy, and honestly, I didn't want to see what years of dust had done to everything up there. My father used to say, "Some things are better left where they rest." I laughed at that as a kid, but now those words sounded heavier than before. A week later, I woke up around 10:30 a.m. to a soft thump. The kind of sound that makes your heart start racing before your mind catches up. It came from the hallway, directly where the attic door was. I sat up, holding my breath, listening. The house was still. Then another creak, slow like wood being stepped on. I got out of bed, walked to the door, and peeked into the hallway. Nothing. Just shadows and that white rope ring swaying ever so slightly. I told myself I was imagining it. That maybe I'd heard something outside, the branches scraping against the roof, maybe an animal. I closed my bedroom door and left a small lamp on. Still, I barely slept that night. In the morning, I checked the attic door. It was tightly shut, just like always. But when I looked closer, I noticed faint dust trails around the edges, like something had shifted up there recently. I shrugged it off. I'd been meaning to clean up there anyway, maybe it was time. The next day, I pulled down the ladder for the first time in years. The hinges screamed when I unfolded them. A wave of dry, cold air hit my face as I climbed up. The attic smelled like dust, wood, and something faintly metallic, like old nails or rust. Light from my phone barely reached the corners. Boxes sat stacked neatly, furniture covered in sheets, a few cobwebs hanging low. Nothing unusual, but there was something about the stillness up there. The kind of quiet that presses on your chest. I left everything as it was and climbed back down, feeling relieved to be back on solid ground. I closed the attic door, pushed the ladder back into place, and tried to forget about it. That night I slept fine. No noises, no creaks. The following night, though, something changed. I woke up again around 20:30 a.m., same as before. But this time, it wasn't a thump that woke me. It was the distinct, hollow click of wood shifting above me, like something being pulled open. I froze, staring at the ceiling, every hair on my arm standing on end. It lasted only a few seconds. Then silence. I forced myself to check, even though my chest felt tight. I opened my door, hard hammering. The hallway was dimly lit by the nightlight from the wall. And there it was, the attic door, slightly open. Just an inch. Enough to see the black space beyond it. I didn't move for almost a minute. My mind tried to reason. Draft bad hinge? Maybe I hadn't locked it properly. But deep down, something in me whispered what I didn't want to believe. That door hadn't opened on its own. I pushed it shut, locked it tight, and went back to bed. But sleep never came. That was the first night I truly felt the house wasn't empty. After that night, I told myself I was being ridiculous. Old houses shift, wood moves. Maybe I hadn't closed the latch properly. Still, the image of that dark gap, the 1-inch crack of black above me, stayed in my mind all day. I remember pacing around the kitchen the next morning with a mug of coffee, glancing up at the hallway ceiling again and again. The attic door sat perfectly flat, sealed shut, looking innocent. If anyone had walked in, they would have thought nothing of it. But to me, it felt like it was watching me. That night, I decided to take precautions. Before bed, I pushed a small wooden chair directly under the attic door. I figured if it somehow opened again, I'd at least hear the chair fall or scrape. It made me feel better, like I had some control over whatever was happening. For a few nights, nothing happened. The quiet returned and I began to relax again. But the peace didn't last. It started small, little changes I couldn't explain. Objects not quite where I left them. A picture frame turned slightly on the hallway wall. A book that had been on my nightstand now resting on the floor, as if it had been carefully placed there. I blamed myself every time. You're tired. You're just not remembering things right. Then one morning, I found the chair I'd placed under the attic door moved. Not tipped over, not knocked aside, just shifted a few inches to the left. I stood there staring at it for a long time. The wooden legs had left faint drag marks on the dusty floor. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe I'd kicked it without noticing. Maybe I'd nudged it when passing by. But the part of me that knew better, the part that remembered that dark crack, wouldn't believe it. That evening, I called my friend Mark. He'd grown up with me and knew the house well. I told him about the attic door, about the noises. He chuckled. Man, you're alone out there too long. That place always had weird drafts. Remember your dad used to say it breathes at night. I laughed with him, pretending it didn't bother me. But when I hung up, the house felt heavier than before. That night I went to bed early, determined to sleep through anything. Around 20:15 a.m., I woke up to the sound of faint tapping. Not from the walls this time, from above me. It wasn't random either. It came in 3 slow taps. Then silence, then again, 3 slow taps. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. The sound was directly over my bed. I held my breath, listening for movement. But after a minute, it stopped. The next morning, I climbed up to check again. I pulled down the ladder, flashlight in hand, and pushed open the attic door. A rush of cold air spilled down, brushing against my face like breath. The attic was exactly as I'd left it at first. Then I noticed something small. Near the center of the floor, a patch of dust had been disturbed. A clean outline where something had recently been moved. A large box, maybe 2 feet wide. I followed the drag marks toward the far corner where the box now sat. Inside, there were old photos and family letters. My father's handwriting. My mother's things from when she was alive. For a moment, nostalgia pushed away the fear. I knelt down and flipped through them. Black and white photos, smiling faces, a few yellowed letters addressed to my father. But as I picked up the last one, something else slipped out. A small, torn photograph. It showed the house, this house but older, darker, as if taken decades ago. Standing at the window of the attic was a shape. Not clear, not detailed. Just the silhouette of someone looking out. I felt a chill crawl up my back. I dropped the photo, shut the box, and backed toward the ladder. When my foot hit the last rung, I heard it. A low, slow creak from the far corner. I froze. It wasn't just the wood shifting this time. It sounded deliberate, like someone was leaning their weight on the boards. I waited. Breath caught in my throat. The noise came again. Closer. I didn't wait to see what it was. I shoved the ladder back, slammed the attic door, and locked it. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped the latch twice before it caught. That night, I slept in the living room with the lights on. I told myself I'd call someone in the morning, maybe have a friend stay over, or even rent somewhere for a few days. But in the light of day, fear always seems foolish. When the sun came up, the house felt harmless again. The birds outside, the hum of the refrigerator. It all felt normal. By noon, I almost convinced myself I'd exaggerated everything. until I noticed something new. The attic ladder's rope ring, the one I'd been so careful to keep flat against the ceiling, was hanging lower than before. Not by much, but enough that it brushed the top of the hallway light fixture. It shouldn't have been possible. For it to hang that low, the door would have had to shift open slightly, just enough for the rope to slide through. I stood under it, staring up for nearly a minute. The air felt heavier up there, colder. Then, out of nowhere, I caught the faint smell of something. Old wood and metal, mixed with something else. Something sour. I didn't stay to figure it out. I stepped back, turned off the hall light, and went straight to my room, trying not to think about it. That night, I double-locked my bedroom door. I told myself if the attic door wanted to move again, it could do it without me knowing. I tried to sleep. But around 20:30 a.m., I heard the creak again. This time slower. Heavier. Like someone testing each rung of the attic ladder. And I realized I hadn't put the chair back under it that night. For the next few days, I avoided the attic altogether. I tried to convince myself that nothing strange had happened, that maybe I'd been sleepwalking or half dreaming. But every night, around the same time, I would wake up, always between 20:25 and 20:40 a.m. No sound, no movement, just that cold heaviness in the air, like the house was holding its breath. On the fifth night, I decided to record it. I set my phone on the hallway table, facing the attic door, hit record, and went back to bed. It was almost a relief to think that I might finally have proof. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind. When I checked the footage the next morning, the screen was black. The phone had stopped recording only 13 minutes after I pressed record. Battery drained from 90% to 0. I stared at it frustrated, then noticed something faint in the last few seconds of video, a single creak, followed by a soft thump. And just before the clip cut out, the camera caught a flicker. A movement of shadow, right under the attic door. I told myself it was probably the phone glitching. Old wiring? Maybe static interference. But deep down, I knew better. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I left my lamp on, lying on my back, staring at the ceiling. Every sound in the house was louder now. The tick of the clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator, even my own breathing felt like it echoed off the walls. Then, sometime around 20:30, I heard it again. The creak. But this time it wasn't distant. It came from just outside my door. I froze, every muscle tense. The sound was rhythmic, slow, deliberate. Step, pause, as if someone was walking barefoot down the hallway. My throat went dry. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. I sat up, trying not to make a sound. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom. Then nothing. Seconds crawled by. I reached for my phone, hands shaking, and turned on the flashlight. The narrow beam cut through the dark and hit the door. No movement, no sound. I held the light there for what felt like minutes before I finally got up the nerve to open it. The hallway was empty. Completely silent, except for the soft swaying sound above me. The attic rope was moving. I stood under it, staring up. It wasn't swinging hard, just slow and steady, like someone had brushed past it moments before. I lifted my flashlight and noticed the latch. Unlocked. I didn't have the courage to touch it. I backed away slowly, whispering to myself, lock it tomorrow. First thing, just lock it tomorrow. Then I went back to my room, shut the door, and stayed awake until dawn. The next day I tried to be logical. I checked all the doors and windows, made sure nothing could be causing drafts. I even replaced the attic latch with a small hook, an eye lock I found in my father's old tool kit. It made me feel safer. For a while. That night I went to bed early. The first half of the night was quiet. But when I woke again, 2:33 a.m. exactly, I was already sitting up. My body had moved before my mind caught up, as if something had pulled me out of sleep. The air felt colder than usual. I turned on the lamp, and that's when I saw it. A faint shape on the ceiling. Not a shadow. At least, not one that belonged to anything in the room. It looked like the silhouette of someone kneeling above the light fixture, barely visible, shifting slightly. I blinked hard, thinking it was my eyes adjusting, maybe a trick of light. But the shape moved. I jumped out of bed, knocking over the lamp. The light flickered, then went out completely. In the darkness, I heard it, footsteps again. But this time, not on the floor. Above me, pacing back and forth across the attic. I ran to the hallway and shone my phone light upward. The attic door was shut tight, locked still in place. The footsteps stopped. Silence fell so heavy it hurt my ears. Then a whisper. It wasn't clear, more like breath forming half words. I couldn't tell if it came from inside the attic or directly behind me. I spun around, scanning the walls, my pulse racing. Nothing there, just the cold air pressing in from all sides. I backed away slowly, my throat tight. And then, from above, 3 soft knocks echoed down through the ceiling. Not random. Measured. 1, 2, 3. I ran to my room and slammed the door. For the rest of the night, I sat against the wall with every light on, trying to convince myself that I was awake, that this was real. When morning finally came, I felt sick from exhaustion. I walked the house in silence, half expecting to find the attic door wide open. But it wasn't. Everything was in place. The only difference was the smell, stronger now like damp wood and iron. I packed a small bag that day. I told myself I'd stay at a motel just for a night or two. But by sunset, I was still there. Something about leaving the house felt wrong, as if I'd be abandoning something unfinished. That night, I moved my mattress into the living room, as far from the attic as I could get. I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "It's just an old house. It's just an old house." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Around 3 a.m., a faint creak echoed from upstairs. Then another, and another, until it sounded like someone was slowly walking toward the attic door and stopping right above me. I didn't move. I couldn't. The floorboards groaned softly, then went still. And then I heard it. The slow sound of something dragging across the attic floor, like a heavy box being pulled closer to the opening. That was the first night I realized it wasn't just in the attic anymore. It was waiting. I didn't sleep much after that night. Every time the house creaked, I froze. Every faint sound turned into a question I didn't want answered. Still, I tried to convince myself that it couldn't get worse. That maybe if I ignored it long enough, whatever was happening would just stop. It didn't. It got worse. The fourth night after the dragging sound, the air in the house changed. I don't know how to explain it except that it felt alive. Every breath I took felt heavier, thicker, like the oxygen had turned to syrup. Even the silence had weight. That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder rattled the windows, rain hammered the roof. I sat in the living room with every lamp on, pretending to read. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, but time seemed to crawl. At 2:41 a.m., the power went out. The lamps flicked, dimmed, then died completely. The only light came from flashes of lightning through the curtains. For a moment, I just sat there frozen, staring into the darkness. Then came the sound. Thump from above me. Thump, thump, thump. Heavy footsteps moving across the attic floor. Faster now. I whispered to myself, "It's just the storm. Just the storm." But storms don't walk. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it upward. The ceiling seemed to pulse with the light of every flash of lightning. Then I heard it. The ladder shifting. The attic door creaked. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The hook I'd installed, the one that had kept it shut for days, screeched as it bent. Then, with a violent snap, the attic door dropped open. The wooden ladder unfolded halfway down the hallway with a deafening slam. I stumbled backward, my phone shaking in my hand. The air pouring down from the attic was freezing, colder than anything I'd ever felt indoors, and with it came a smell, rotten dust and something metallic like dried blood. Lightning flashed again, and for a split second I saw something at the top of the ladder. Not clearly, but enough. A shape. Pale hands gripping the edge of the attic floor. Something was leaning down, watching me. I ran. I didn't even think, I just bolted to my room, slammed the door, and locked it. My breath came in sharp bursts, heart hammering so hard I could barely hear the thunder outside. Then the sound came again, but this time from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow, dragging, uneven. The kind that sound like someone learning to walk again after years of forgetting how. Each step closer, and closer. The doorknob rattled. I backed against the far wall, whispering, "Please, no. Please just stop." The rattling grew more violent, shaking the entire doorframe. Then it stopped suddenly. For a few seconds there was silence. Then scratching. Right above my head, I looked up. The ceiling light flickered once, and the sound of nails dragging across wood filled the room. Whatever it was crawling across the ceiling right above me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then the whisper came again. Low, broken, almost human. It sounded like my name. Dragged out, breathy, avid, my blood turned to ice. I grabbed the nearest thing, my father's old flashlight, and shone it up toward the ceiling. The beam caught something, a dark stain spreading slowly through the ceiling plaster. Something was seeping through, thick and dark, like liquid from an old wound. The room suddenly shook with a loud bang from above, then another. Then screaming. It wasn't human. It wasn't even animal. It was the kind of sound that doesn't belong in this world, high, guttural, endless. The walls seemed to vibrate with it. My chest ached from how loud it was. I covered my ears and yelled, but the scream didn't stop. Then, Silence. Total silence. No rain. No thunder, nothing. The kind of silence that makes you realize the world has gone still because it's listening too. I sat there shaking, flashlight trembling in my hands. The stain on the ceiling was gone. No movement. No sound. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, before I worked up the courage to open the door. The hallway was dark. The attic ladder still hung open, swaying gently. I walked toward it slowly, my steps echoing on the old wooden floor. Each step felt like I was walking toward my own execution. The beam of my flashlight trembled across the edges of the open hatch. And then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. On the floor beneath the ladder were footprints. Small, bare, and wet, like someone had walked down from the attic after the storm. They led down the hallway, right toward my bedroom door. And then they stopped, right outside it. There was no return trail. No footprints leading back. I whispered, "Where did you go?" But deep down, I already knew the answer. The house creaked softly then, as if exhaling after holding something in. I looked up at the attic door one last time. The ladder swayed slightly, though there was no breeze. And from the darkness above, I thought I saw movement. A shadow shifting back, retreating slowly into the black. I stood there until the morning light bled through the curtains. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. When the sun finally rose, I pulled the ladder up, locked the attic, and nailed the door shut. Every board, every nail hammered in until my hands bled. When I was done, I sat on the floor, trembling, whispering, "It's over. It's over. It's over." But deep down, I knew it wasn't, because as I said it, I heard it again, from inside the ceiling. A single soft tap, then another, then three. For days after that night, I barely spoke. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Who would believe me? I told myself it was exhaustion, stress, maybe grief. But I couldn't bring myself to go near that hallway again. Even in daylight, that section of the ceiling looked wrong, as if the wood itself remembered what had crawled beneath it. I slept on the couch, lights on, the hammer still resting beside me. I told myself I'd sell the place soon, move into town, forget it. But every night around the same time, I'd wake up Tuesday 33. Always. Even without a sound, my body knew. For the first few nights after nailing the attic shut, there was silence. No creaking. No tapping. Just heavy stillness. And yet I could feel it. The kind of feeling that sits in the corner of your vision, waiting for you to look. On the fourth night, I woke up to that smell again. The metallic, rotten scent. It was faint, but it was there. I checked every corner of the living room, every vent, every wall crack, nothing. But when I opened the window to let in fresh air, I realized something. The smell wasn't coming from the house, it was coming from above. I stared up at the ceiling, heart hammering. The boards were still nailed shut, not a single one loose. But there it was, a faint, irregular tapping. Not strong, not aggressive, just enough to remind me it was still there. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, I whispered. "You can't come down anymore." My voice sounded foreign, weak, cracked. But as soon as I said it, the tapping stopped. I stood there for what felt like hours, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. By morning, I decided to leave for good. I packed a suitcase, grabbed my father's old photo albums, and loaded everything into my truck. When I stepped back inside for one last look, I hesitated. The hallway felt colder again. Still, silent. The attic door was hidden behind the boards and nails I'd driven in, but I could feel it watching me. On the kitchen table, I left my keys. And next to them, the photograph I'd found in the attic, the one with the shape in the window. Only now, the photograph looked different. The figure in the attic window wasn't just a silhouette anymore. It had detail, faint but visible. A pale face, mouth slightly open, as if whispering something. And behind it, the faint outline of another shape. A man. It looked like me. I dropped the photo and stumbled back. My heart pounded in my throat. I picked it up again, but it was just a shadow now. The details gone. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe I wanted a reason to stay afraid. Either way, I walked out and closed the door behind me. I didn't look back. Not once. It's been 6 months since I left that house. I rent a small apartment now. Bright, modern, quiet. For a while, I slept fine. No noises, no shadows, no strange smells. But about 2 weeks ago, it started again. The first time I thought it was the neighbors. A faint creak late at night above my ceiling. Then came the tapping. Soft, steady, 3 taps. Always 3. I moved the bed away from the wall. Didn't help. Then, last night I woke up at 2:33, same as before, and saw something that froze my blood. A single flake of dust drifting down from the ceiling, followed by another. I stared up at the vent above me. It was small, square, with 4 screws holding it in place. Except now, one screw is gone, and the vent cover was hanging slightly loose. I got up slowly, barely breathing, and stood beneath it. The air leaking out was cold, too cold, and it smelled like the house. Old wood, rust, and something else. Something dead. I whispered, "Please don't." And then I heard it. The same faint whisper from the old house. My name. David. I stumbled backward, hit the wall, dropped my phone. The vent cover shook once, lightly, like something pressing from the other side. Then stillness. I stayed awake until morning, staring at that vent, waiting for it to move again. It never did. This morning, I called a repair service to come seal it shut. They said they'd send someone tomorrow. Until then, I've been sitting here, writing all of this down, trying to make sense of it. But the more I write, the less it feels like a story. It feels like a warning. Because whatever lived in that attic, whatever I locked away, it didn't stay there. It followed me. And tonight, I'll probably wake up again at 2033. The tapping will start. The air will turn cold. And maybe this time the vent will open all the way. Tap, tap, tap. He left that old house behind, but the tapping never stopped. It followed him. Through walls, through ceilings, through every night that came after. And if you ever wake up around 2:33 a.m. and hear 3 soft taps from above, don't look up. Because once something learns your name, it doesn't need your house anymore. Mandy and IGHTNT will return soon.